The air inside the Grand Oak restaurant buzzed with chatter, the scent of sizzling steak and fresh coffee swirling through the dimly lit space. Maya Carter, a 26-year-old waitress, weaved effortlessly between tables, her tray balanced with precision. 3 years of working double shifts had sharpened her reflexes, but it wasn't just her skill that made her stand out. Her warm presence made regular customers feel like family. Tonight, however, she wasn't herself. The dream of opening her own bakery still felt like a distant fantasy, and after yet another grueling double shift, exhaustion clung to her like a second skin. Then the front door swung open, letting in a cold gust of wind. A tall figure stepped inside, dressed in a black hoodie and sunglasses, moving with quiet confidence. There was something oddly familiar about him. He walked past the host stand and slid into a booth in the corner, deliberately away from the crowd. Maya, wiping her hands on her apron, made her way over, her customer service smile locked in place. "Good evening, sir. What can I get for you?" The man hesitated before pulling his hood back slightly. Maya's breath hitched. Dwayne Johnson, the Hollywood megastar, sitting in her section, casually blending into the background. "I'll just have a black coffee," he said, his deep voice barely above a whisper. Maya nodded, her heart hammering in her chest. She'd served VIPs before, politicians, athletes, but this was Dwayne Johnson, the man who inspired millions sitting in her restaurant, ordering coffee like it was just another Tuesday. She returned quickly, setting the cup in front of him, and in a hushed voice whispered, "I won't tell anyone, but it's an honor to serve you." Dwayne glanced up, the corner of his mouth lifting in a small grin. "I appreciate that." For a moment, it felt like just another ordinary interaction. But then things took a turn. A couple of diners nearby started whispering, their eyes darting toward Dwayne's table. Then, the unmistakable flash of a phone camera. The energy shifted. The quiet murmur of the restaurant turned into a growing hum of excitement. More heads turned. People leaned toward each other, and within seconds, the discreet moment was gone. Before Maya could react, a sharp voice sliced through the commotion. "Maya!" She turned to see Philip Lancaster, the restaurant manager, storming toward her. His lips were pressed into a thin line, eyes burning with frustration. "What did I tell you about interacting with VIPs?" he hissed. Maya frowned. He's just having coffee." Philip didn't bother listening. "Get him out of here. Quietly. We don't need this circus in our restaurant." Maya hesitated. She glanced at Dwayne, who remained calm but alert. He had seen this before, the shift in treatment the moment people realized who he was. Her stomach twisted. She didn't want to ask him to leave, but she had no idea that this one moment would change everything. Maya swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the tray. The restaurant had rules, strict ones, about keeping a distraction-free environment for high-profile guests. But this wasn't a distraction. Dwayne wasn't causing trouble. He was just sitting there drinking coffee. She turned back to him, her voice lower now. "Mr. Johnson, Dwayne gave a small nod before she could finish. "It's okay," he said, his voice calm. "I don't want to cause problems." He reached for his wallet, pulling out a few bills and setting them on the table. But before he could stand, a man from the adjacent table suddenly leaned over. "Oh my God, it really is you," the man blurted out, his voice just loud enough to turn more heads. "Dwayne, man, I'm a huge fan. Can I get a picture real quick?" Maya saw Dwayne's jaw tighten. He forced a polite smile. "I appreciate that, brother, but I'm just trying to enjoy my coffee." Philip was already back at her side. "See? This is exactly what I was talking about," he muttered, his voice sharp. "Now get him out, right now." Maya felt something snap inside her. It wasn't fair. She had seen Philip bend over backward for CEOs and wealthy customers who treated the staff like dirt, but a kind man like Dwayne Johnson, he was being treated like an inconvenience just for existing. She took a breath, forcing herself to stay professional. "Sir, if you'd just give him some space," Philip cut her off instantly. "Are you arguing with me right now, Maya?" His voice was louder now, drawing attention. "Because I can make sure this is your last shift. The threat hung in the air. Dwayne's expression darkened slightly. He watched Maya closely, sensing the weight of the moment. A beat passed. Then, slowly, he pushed back his chair and stood. "I'll leave," he said, his voice steady. "No need to take it out on her." Philip crossed his arms. "That's right." Maya clenched her fists. "This isn't right," she muttered under her breath, but Philip was already walking away, satisfied that the situation had been handled. Dwayne gave her a small nod, then turned toward the exit. But just as he reached the door, he hesitated. Then he looked back at Maya. There was something unreadable in his expression, something that almost felt like a promise. And then he was gone. Maya exhaled shakily, her hands still trembling. The restaurant buzzed with murmurs, some guests whispering, others pulling out their phones to type something. Philip turned back to her with a smirk. "You should be thanking me," he said, voice dripping with condescension. "That could have been a disaster." Maya didn't say a word, but she had a terrible feeling that this night wasn't over yet. She was right, because the next morning, her entire life would come crashing down. Maya barely slept that night. She kept replaying the moment in her head. Dwayne's calm exit, Philip's smug smirk, the tension in the air. Something about it felt unfinished, like a storm that hadn't fully hit yet. When her alarm buzzed at dawn, she groggily reached for her phone. One notification after another flooded her screen. Her stomach dropped. She opened the first one. "Waitress gets fired after standing up for Dwayne Johnson. Unreal. Justice for Maya." Another one. "This restaurant just disrespected The Rock and we're supposed to be okay with that." Maya's pulse quickened as she scrolled. Her name was trending. Someone must have recorded the incident, and now it was spreading like wildfire. A cold, uneasy feeling settled in her chest. Before she could process it, her phone buzzed again, an unknown number. She hesitated but answered. "Hello? Maya." Philip's voice came through, sharp and impatient. "Get down here. Now." The line went dead. Maya's heart pounded as she hurriedly got dressed, threw on her jacket, and rushed outside. The icy morning air did nothing to calm the storm brewing inside her. By the time she arrived at the Grand Oak, the atmosphere was already tense. The usual steady hum of the restaurant was replaced by hushed whispers. Employees avoided eye contact. A few regulars turned their heads toward her, their expressions unreadable. She pushed open the office door. Philip sat behind his desk, jaw clenched, phone in hand. The moment she stepped in, he tossed his phone onto the desk, the screen still lit up with an article. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he hissed. Maya blinked. I didn't. We are getting calls non-stop," he cut her off, voice rising. "People cancelling reservations, threats of bad press, investors asking questions. Because of you." Maya's throat tightened. "I didn't record anything. I didn't post anything." Philip laughed bitterly. "Doesn't matter. The damage is done. And I'm not about to let you ruin this place over some Hollywood drama." Maya stiffened as he leaned forward. "You're fired." The words hit her like a slap. For a second, she just stood there, frozen. She had worked 3 years in this place, given up sleep, weekends, holidays, all to save for a dream she wasn't sure she'd ever reach. And now, gone. Just like that. Maya forced herself to breathe. Slowly, she took off her apron, placed it on the desk, and looked Philip right in the eye. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said, voice steady. Philip smirked. "Doesn't matter." Maya turned on her heel and walked out. She didn't look back, but as she stepped outside, the weight of reality hit her hard. She had no job, no backup plan, no idea what to do next. And then, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text. "Unknown number. Be ready. You have a meeting in 1 hour." Maya frowned, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Maya, who is this?" A few seconds later, the reply came. "Unknown number. Dwayne Johnson." Her breath caught in her throat. She stared at the message, her mind racing. Was this real? Why was he reaching out? And more importantly, what did he want from her? Maya sat frozen on the curb outside the restaurant, staring at the message. Dwayne Johnson. Texting her. Her fingers trembled as she reread the words. Be ready. You have a meeting in 1 hour. Was this a joke? Some kind of prank? Her heart pounded as she typed back. Maya, is this really you? The reply came almost instantly. Dwayne Johnson. Yeah. Meet me at the Westbridge Tower, 30th floor. My team will be waiting. Maya swallowed hard. This was real. She had no idea what this was about, but she wasn't about to waste the opportunity. She flagged down a cab, barely feeling the cold as she climbed in. Westbridge Tower, she told the driver, still trying to process everything. As the city blurred past, her mind raced. Why was Dwayne Johnson calling her for a meeting? Did he feel bad for what happened? Was he offering her a job? Or was this something bigger? 30 minutes later, the cab pulled up to an ultra-modern skyscraper, its glass windows reflecting the bright winter sun. Maya hesitated for only a second before stepping out, straightening her coat and pushing through the entrance. The moment she walked in, a man in a sharp suit approached her. Miss Carter? She nodded. Follow me. She was led through a sleek, high-security office space, past glass-walled conference rooms, until finally, the man stopped in front of a large, frosted glass door. He pushed it open. And there, sitting at the head of a massive desk, was Dwayne Johnson himself. No hoodie, no sunglasses, just Dwayne, in a crisp black suit, watching her with that same calm, knowing expression. Come in, he said, motioning to the chair across from him. Maya sat down, pulse hammering. I don't understand why I'm here. Dwayne leaned forward, resting his forearms on the desk. I saw what happened after I left that restaurant. His tone was serious now. You lost your job because you did the right thing. That doesn't sit right with me. Maya blinked. I didn't do anything special. Dwayne studied her for a moment. Then he reached over to a folder sitting on the desk and slid it toward her. Open it. Her fingers trembled as she flipped it open. Inside was a business proposal. Maya's breath caught in her throat as she scanned the first few lines. A bakery, a fully funded startup. In her name. I heard you've been saving for one, Dwayne said, watching her reaction closely. I want to invest in you. Maya's hands shook. This couldn't be real. She looked up, her throat tightening. You're serious? Dwayne smiled. Dead serious. She stared down at the papers, her heart pounding so hard she could barely hear her own thoughts. This wasn't just a job offer, this was a chance to change her life forever. Maya could barely breathe. The weight of the moment pressed down on her as she stared at the proposal in front of her. A bakery. Her own bakery. For years she had dreamed about this, scribbling business ideas on napkins, sketching bakery layouts during lunch breaks, counting every hard-earned tip toward a future that always felt out of reach. And now, it was sitting in her hands, fully funded, backed by Dwayne Johnson. She swallowed hard and looked up. I don't know what to say. Dwayne leaned back in his chair, a knowing smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Say yes. Maya's pulse raced. Why are you doing this? Dwayne's expression grew serious. Because I believe in people who do the right thing. You didn't owe me anything that night, but you still chose integrity over fear. That's rare. Maya's fingers tightened around the folder. This was too good to be true. What's the catch? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dwayne chuckled, shaking his head. No catch, just one condition. Here it comes. You're gonna have to work harder than you ever have before. His eyes locked onto hers. This isn't a handout, Maya. It's an investment. You're gonna run this bakery, make it a success, and prove to yourself that you were always meant for more. Maya felt something shift inside her. For years she had been stuck in survival mode, grinding through shifts, taking orders, following rules, never daring to dream too big. Now someone was looking her in the eye and telling her she was worth betting on. She exhaled sharply, then nodded. I'll do it. Dwayne grinned. That's what I wanted to hear. Before Maya could fully process what had just happened, the office door swung open. A man in a grey suit stepped in, his face tight with concern. "Mr. Johnson, we have a situation." Dwayne's expression shifted instantly. "What kind of situation?" The man hesitated, then handed over a tablet. Dwayne's eyes flickered over the screen, his jaw tightening. Maya felt her stomach twist. Something was wrong. Dwayne looked up, his voice calm but firm. "Maya, do you know a man named Philip Lancaster?" Maya's blood ran cold. Philip, her former manager. The man who humiliated her, the man who fired her. Her voice came out quieter than she expected. "Yeah. Why?" Dwayne turned the tablet toward her. On the screen was a breaking news headline. "Ex-restaurant manager claims Dwayne Johnson used his power to ruin his business, calls for legal action." Maya's breath hitched. Below the headline was a picture of Philip standing outside the Grand Oak, reporters swarming him. The words underneath made her stomach drop. "Dwayne Johnson thinks he can play God. He got me fired from my own restaurant. Now, I'm going to make sure he pays for it." Maya's hands clenched into fists. Philip wasn't done with her yet, and now he was coming after Dwayne. Maya's hands tightened into fists as she stared at the screen. Philip's face was plastered all over the news, his expression full of fake outrage, spinning lies to the cameras. "He's lying," she muttered, anger rising in her chest. Dwayne, still holding the tablet, barely reacted. His expression remained calm, controlled, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of something cold. "I know," he said simply. Maya glanced at him. "Aren't you going to say something? He's making it sound like you..." "Ruined his career?" Dwayne finished, leaning back in his chair. His voice was even, but there was a sharp edge beneath it. "Maya, guys like him, they don't survive on honesty, they survive on manipulation. He knows exactly what he's doing." Maya's chest tightened. She had spent years working under Philip's control, watching him smooth-talk investors, lie to customers, and intimidate employees into silence. And now, he was trying to do the same thing. But this time, his target wasn't just some overworked waitress. He was going after Dwayne Johnson. And worst of all, the public was eating it up. The news anchor on the screen spoke in a crisp voice. "Philip Lancaster claims that after a misunderstanding with Dwayne Johnson, his restaurant faced a wave of backlash, leading to financial losses and staff layoffs. His message: powerful celebrities shouldn't be able to destroy small businesses just because they feel like it." Maya's stomach twisted in anger. "He's making himself the victim," she said through clenched teeth. Dwayne didn't answer right away. He exhaled slowly, rolling his shoulders like a fighter loosening up before a match. Then finally, he stood. "Come with me," he said. Maya blinked. "What?" Dwayne didn't repeat himself. He just grabbed his phone, gestured for his assistant to follow, and started toward the door. Maya hesitated only for a second before rushing after him. Minutes later, they were in the back of a sleek black SUV, speeding through downtown. Maya looked over at him, confused. "Where are we going?" Dwayne glanced at his phone, then back at her. "Philip's restaurant." Maya's breath caught in her throat. "What? Why?" Dwayne's jaw flexed. "Because he wants a war." He looked at her, his voice steady. "Let's give him one." The SUV pulled up outside the Grand Oak. A crowd had already gathered. Reporters, customers, bystanders, all waiting for more drama. The second they spotted Dwayne stepping out of the SUV, the noise level exploded. Maya followed him, her pulse hammering. Philip was already on the sidewalk, pretending to be shocked by Dwayne's arrival. But Maya saw through him instantly, the slight smirk, the practiced stance. He had been expecting this. Dwayne walked straight up to him. "Maya," he said without looking at her, "get your phone out." Maya fumbled in her pocket, her hands shaking slightly as she hit record. Philip smiled for the cameras. Well, if it isn't Hollywood's golden boy himself." Dwayne didn't smile back. He stepped in close, just enough to make Philip shift uncomfortably. "You want to play games?" Dwayne's voice was low, almost casual. "Let's play." Philip let out a fake laugh. "Oh, please. I'm just a small business owner trying to..." You fired a hard-working woman for doing her job. Dwayne cut in, his tone razor-sharp. Then you ran to the media and played the victim. But here's the thing, Philip. You and I both know you're lying. Philip's face twitched. Dwayne continued, voice calm but carrying weight. So, here's what's going to happen. You're going to retract every single one of those statements. You're going to tell the media the truth, that you fired Maya for no reason. And then, you're going to walk away quietly before this gets worse for you. Philip scoffed, but there was nervous energy behind it. Or what? You think your little fan base is going to scare me? Dwayne's lips curled slightly. No, he said, but facts will. He turned slightly and gestured toward Maya's phone. Philip frowned, then froze as he noticed something behind her. Maya turned, her heart skipping a beat. Multiple people in the crowd were also holding up their phones, recording everything. It wasn't just Maya anymore, it was hundreds of people. Philip's confidence wavered. His eyes darted around as the realization set in. This wasn't just a Hollywood celebrity versus a small business owner. This was the truth, playing out in front of the entire world. For the first time, Philip looked afraid. And Maya? For the first time in a long time. She felt powerful. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. The crowd had gone silent, their phones raised, capturing every second of what was unfolding. Philip shifted uncomfortably. His face twitched, his practiced smirk faltering under the weight of hundreds of eyes watching. Maya had seen him talk his way out of situations before. He was a master manipulator, but not this time. This time, he was trapped. Dwayne crossed his arms, his towering presence making Philip shrink back slightly. Go on, Dwayne said smoothly, his voice steady but unshakable. Tell them the truth. Philip forced out a fake laugh, glancing around nervously. Oh, come on, Dwayne. You're blowing this out of proportion. There's no need for all this drama. Maya felt her hands curl into fists. Dwayne tilted his head. Drama? You dragged my name through the mud. You painted yourself as the victim. And now that the truth is staring you in the face, you want to pretend it's no big deal. Philip's throat bobbed as he swallowed. Dwayne cut him off, voice sharp. You know what happens to people like you, Philip? Philip blinked, hesitating. What? Dwayne stepped closer. You think you're in control because you've spent years stepping on people who couldn't fight back, but today, you picked the wrong person. The crowd murmured, shifting closer. Philip's eyes darted around. He was losing control of the narrative, and he knew it. Dwayne nodded toward Maya. She's been busting her ass for years trying to build something, and you... His expression darkened. You fired her over coffee. Philip flushed red, a vein in his temple pulsing. It wasn't about that. It was about professionalism. No, Maya finally spoke, her voice stronger than she expected. It was about power. You just didn't like the idea of someone standing up to you. Philip whipped his head toward her, but before he could say a word, Dwayne pulled out his phone. Philip frowned. What are you... Dwayne held the screen up to his ear. Hey, Frank. Yeah, you watching this? He smirked slightly. Good. Call the legal team. I want every false claim this guy made taken apart on national television. Philip's face went pale. Dwayne locked eyes with him. You like the media so much? Let's see how you feel when they start digging into your past. Philip visibly stiffened. You wouldn't... Dwayne raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? Silence. A long, thick silence. Then finally, Philip exhaled shakily, his shoulders sagging in defeat. Fine, he muttered. Dwayne nodded, as if he expected nothing less. Good choice. Philip cleared his throat, then slowly turned toward the cameras, face tight with humiliation. I may have exaggerated some details, he admitted, his voice strained. I let my emotions get the best of me, and I was wrong to fire Maya. The crowd murmured in surprise. Some people laughed, others just shook their heads. Maya felt a wave of relief and disbelief. She had won. Philip glanced back at Dwayne, eyes burning with resentment. Happy now? Dwayne smirked, getting there. Philip scowled, then turned sharply and stormed back inside his restaurant. The door slammed behind him. Maya exhaled, her pulse finally slowing. Dwayne turned to her. "How do you feel?" Maya let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. "Like I just watched Karma in real time." Dwayne chuckled. "Feels good, doesn't it?" Maya nodded. "Yeah, it really does." The crowd burst into applause. People cheered, some even calling out Maya's name. For the first time in her life, she wasn't invisible. Dwayne patted her on the shoulder. "Come on, let's get to work. We've got a bakery to open." Maya grinned. For the first time in a long time, she knew her future was just beginning.